As I mentioned in the last video, I'm going to take a look at some chord progressions and how to write some bass lines to it. So let's get some chords. I'm on presence here with the piano sound. And I'm going to take a simple chord progression. I'll take a C major chord, and then an A minor, an F, and a G. This is a very common chord progression. And I'm just going to play that into the computer right now. And I'll come in here. I've got my chords. I'm just going to select them all, quantize them for this, and I'm going to drag them out, holding the control key or the command key so they become all the same length, and pull them so they last one bar, just like we did in the task. Now I'm going to actually grab this guy because he is not on time. Put him there. And let's set a loop around this. Remember, there's a cool shortcut that you can do here. If you select any event and you want to loop the length of that event, you can push Shift P and the loop goes right around that event. It's pretty cool. Now I push the slash key to put the loop on and we get this. And it loops like that. So the simplest thing that I could do to write this bass line would be to just play the root notes in time with the piano part. So here I have my bass patch, and I'll put this up an octave. So my chords were C, A minor, F, and G. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter if the chord is major or minor because we're just playing the root note. So I'm just going to play C, A, F, G, and I'm going to play it in time with the chords. One note per bar, like this. Come in here, grab all my notes, quantize, and put them to the proper length. And there we go. Let's take a listen. Now, if you have a hard time hearing the bass, here it is. Right, now listen again. Now, as an example of what I mentioned in the last video, what happens if I put this an octave lower? Check this out. See how terrible these notes sound right here? The C is okay, but anything lower, this F is terrible. This is too low. So if it's sounding like that, you know you're too low. I'm gonna go back to where I was. And now I can start thinking of some other rhythms. So I could have played in some different rhythms, but I can also do like this maybe. How about I go like this? So this would be like the most basic thing I could come up with for a new rhythm. I could then add in maybe, I'm grabbing the first note of every chord. I'm going to duplicate that, put it here, and drag it back. Now we get this. Now, what if I take these notes and put them up an octave? So I can then even add in some other notes, like maybe another octave here. And I actually like this being the root note better. And I'll put this one as another root note over here. So So that's an example of a simple bass line that follows the chords. The bass line still changes when the chords change, but it's not playing the same rhythm. And it's not playing just one note, it's playing the root note, but it's also playing the octave of the root note. That's the point I'm trying to get across here. Once we've written our chord progression, we can write this bass line that matches up with the chords. The bass notes change when the chords change, and the notes they're playing are the root notes of whatever chords I'm playing. So you have to know what chords you're playing. If you just are playing some random chords and you have no idea what it is, you're also just going to be guessing as to what the bass note should be. And sometimes that might work amazingly. You might come up with some really cool stuff that you would have never thought of, but a lot of times it'll be confusing and you'll end up with something that sounds okay, but could have been better if you had known what you're doing. So know what chords you're playing, and then go and put those bass notes in that match that. So it would be a good thing to practice this, but we are also going to do a task in the next couple of videos that deals with doing this, and we're going to make a beat out of it, and we're going to attach it to some drums and so on. So these rhythms might be different if I had had a drum loop playing, because the drum loop might have dictated some different rhythms I could use, but here we just see how the bass line's on its own track, the chords are on their own track, and they work together. The last thing I want to say is it can be very beneficial to be able to play bass lines in real time on your keyboard. So I could take this bass line away, open up my tie so you can see the keyboard at the bottom of it. And here I am, you can see these keys being lit up. And I could play the bass line. If I just push record here. So I recorded that in real time with my hands. This takes some practice. You have to know what chords you're playing, and then you have to take time to practice playing those notes in time. It's really, really beneficial though, because if you get good at doing that, you're building up your piano, your keyboard skills, and you'll be able to compose faster. The better you are at playing your chords and your bass lines and your melody on your MIDI controller or your QWERTY keyboard, the faster you can work. If you have to draw everything in individually, it's going to take you a long time and you might not have the same kinds of ideas. That being said, it's still totally appropriate thing to do, and lots of very popular producers or composers or musicians of any kind on the computer do that. So I'm not saying don't do that, but it is a good idea if you can to practice your playing on the keyboard itself, because it'll just speed things up for you. In the next video, I'm going to kind of do the same thing, but we're going to actually work with a drum loop, put some chords in, put some bass in, put some melody in, and we'll have almost created the entire loop from scratch. And then following that, we're going to learn how to expand that into a full song. So let's get started with that.